In 2nd century, Marcus Aurelius famously documented in his book Meditation the quote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In this quote, he successfully documents the fear that until this day, millions of people experience every single day, the fear of failing. The fact that Marcus has been saying this for 18 centuries speak volume on how hard it is for a natural human being to overcome this terror. But in today's video, we are going to uncover the mindset shift that transforms you from being in complete anxiety into absolute confidence about the future. And if you're calling my bullshit on this, then I would like to tell you a story of someone I used to know. He used to be in your exact position, being afraid of what to come and chaining his own legs to the present. Years ago, there was a person I know with great ambitions. He was a high school student who wanted to become a professional basketball player. And when I say a great ambition, I meant he literally sacrificed every single thing in his own life in order to attain the goal. He trained for hours and hours on out. He watched game film alone after everybody has left the facility. He was also brave enough to put the love of his life at the second spot in his priority list. But it didn't matter how much effort and sacrifice this person put into his own craft. He could not get anywhere. He could not improve. He used to be so disappointed that he could not sleep for many days on out. And after years of unanswered effort, he said, "You know what? It is time that I put an end to this." And in his last game, he lifted all the expectations and ideals he had imposed on himself and decided to just play another basketball game. However, after years of underperforming, in his last game, he performed extremely well and attained everything he had ever dreamt of, the performance that he had always hoped for. And this is where it became clearer to him. The reason why he did not succeed was not because of anything external. It was him that stood behind him and his success. It was the invisible chain of fear that he had imposed on himself that did not allow him to perform. And after he realized that, he went on to have many more great games before his career was cut short from injuries. The person in the story was me. I was the one who was held back by my own self. And what we are going to do in this video is to help you to shift your mindset from being afraid to being completely confident in yourself, exactly as I experienced back then. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is to change your perception of failure. Because what stops most people is not failure, but their imagination of failure and their interpretation of it. Let's begin with a simple exercise. I want you to think of a situation where you're afraid to fail, and also something that you have been wanting for a long amount of time. Maybe it's applying for a job, or maybe it's starting a project, or even speaking publicly in front of people. By the way, this is not a place where you guys will be judged or get looked down by others. I want you to be as authentic as possible. And I and everyone else will accept you for who you are. Okay, now that you have got that one thing down, I want you to tell yourself exactly why are you afraid of things not going well. List out all the reasons in the world why you would fail instead of succeed. Circling back to the basketball example, I used to think that I was not cut out to be a leader. I used to think that I could not finish the basketball like professionals, and that my ball handling skills were not as good as I've always hoped it to be. And next, an important question for you to ask yourself is, for all of these reasons, is there something I can do about it? Or am I completely hopeless in the face of failure and there is absolutely zero action I can take to improve my chance of success? And if you're not lying to yourself, then all of the things that you've listed out, you will realize you can put effort and action to solve the problem. For example, I used to think I wasn't cut out to be a leader, but in reality, I can learn to be a leader. In fact, I had so many leaders around me. My coach was a great leader. He was respected by everyone. My classmate was great at guiding others in their academic journey. And if you have looked yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth that there are thousands of actions you can take to move on from failure and achieve success, then you will realize how accurate Marcus Aurelius was when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What's in the way becomes the way." I mean, think about it. Wherever you're sitting right now, to get to the front door, there's an option for you to bust through walls and climb through furniture to get to the front door. But would you ever call that a way? Because the way for you to succeed is not through having everything planned out perfectly, or maybe doing everything flawlessly from A to Z, from beginning to the end. But for you, the truth is, if you stay in the game long enough, and that you have encountered every single failure possible, leading your way up to success, you will be successful. And if your perception has been changed about failure, then I want to let you in on a little fact. The little exercise that we did just now, it was not as little as I said it was. In fact, it is a pretty popular and effective exercise called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It's a psychological approach developed in the 1960s, widely used to treat anxiety, depression, and fear-based thought patterns. In fact, if you go to therapy right now, this is the exact kind of exercises that they also use sometimes without telling you what it is. And now that you're aware of that, why don't we go through another CBT exercise? This exercise is designed to remove any negative perception you have left about failure. First, I want you to think of the exact situation we have just gone through where you're afraid to fail. Then, I want you to challenge your thoughts by being brutally honest, answering these following questions. The first question is, in the worst case scenario, what would be the worst possible outcome of me trying and failing? The second question, what real evidence do I have that this failure would be disastrous? The third question, how tough would it be for me to bounce back from such failure? And lastly, I want you to draw a line, and on one side, write what I thought, and on the other side, write reality. In these 2 columns, write out all the negative thoughts you used to have and also the reality that you've just realized doing this exercise. I should add, if it's possible, you can write it all down in pen and paper, then bring it everywhere with you. It will certainly help you anytime you encounter this fear. Moving on to exercise 2, failure rehearsal, or NLP-based fear exposure. This technique comes from neuro-linguistic programming, and it was developed in the 1970s. NLP is often used in performance coaching or public speaking or even therapy. It is used to reduce fear responses and mentally rehearse the scenarios in a controlled way. I should add that I learned this in high school psychology class. It was an experiment where scientists were trying everything to remove a phobia, and the patient did not budge until they did nothing but tell their client to close their eyes and visualize them in their fearful context. With this exercise, I got over my claustrophobia. This might be a little sidetracked, but as a kid, I went through a Viet-US war historical location. And there, I found a ton of tunnels where Vietnamese used to dig out of prisons. And it was incredibly small, and you can barely fit into it. And ever since then, I got claustrophobic. Since then, I couldn't even hide inside a closet for hide and seek as a child. I would always sweat and feel itchy in tight places. Anyways, got a little sidetracked there, but the point is, I know for a fact that this exercise works, and it can remove even your biggest fear. And basically, to do this exercise, you want to do the following steps. First, close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself in a situation where you're afraid to fail. Really picture it, see the environment, hear the sounds, feel the discomfort. What exactly is happening in front of you in this context? Maybe you're screwing up your public speaking, or maybe you're just missing out game-winning shot like what I used to imagine myself in. Next, I want you to zoom out, as if you're watching yourself from a third-person perspective. Watch how it plays out. But now, instead of being in the failure, you're just observing it. By the way, the longer you stay in this visualization, and the more frequent you keep replaying this moment over and over in your head, you will grow comfortable to this fear. Lastly, imagine that instead of failure being the end of it, imagine it's being a stepping stone. Visualize yourself bouncing back, adjusting, improving, and succeeding because of what you have learned. Once again, let's circle back to the basketball example. For me, I used to imagine myself shooting game-losing bad shots. The type of shots that are so heavily contested, defended, and then missing them airball. And then all the hard work that my entire team has built up until that very last game will go down the drain just because I took that shot. By this point in the video, I hope your fear of failure has drastically improved already. And with the last exercise, we are going to pull out the big gun. The exercise number 3 is called the failure growth loop. It is anti-fragility training. Anti-fragility training is a term coined by philosopher and risk analyst Nassim Taleb in his 2012 book Anti-Fragile: Things That Gain from Disorder. Unlike resilience, which is about enduring challenges, anti-fragility is all about thriving because of challenges. and using failures as a tool for your improvement. The biggest example I can tell of the term anti-fragility is Kobe Bryant, the person who inspired me to pursue basketball back in the day. He famously said this: "Everything negative, pressure, challenges are opportunities for me to rise." As an 18 years old in his rookie season, Kobe put an end to the entire organization season by missing air ball 4 straight shots at the end of the game. And for non-athletic viewers, that means the ball did not even touch the rim in the last exercise. Now, with any ordinary human being, the person would have crawled in their room and never appeared in public again. But Kobe used that as an opportunity to improve himself. He discovered that he wasn't training certain area enough, and the next season he shined through. By the way, there have been actual researches in behavior psychology and entrepreneurship shows that intentionally exposing yourself to controlled failures improves adaptability and confidence over time. And to me, a human being that has a habit of anti-fragility is the most powerful human being on earth. Because it does not matter what life presents them with, they will always shine through without a ray of negativity. And to have this habit, let's try the following exercise. First, think of something in your life that you have been avoiding because you're afraid to fail. Within 5 seconds, I want you to list out in your mind what are all the positive sides of this dire situation. Maybe you just failed your public speaking. Then the positive side that you've just noticed can be, I spoke a little too fast, or I spoke a little too slow, or maybe I was seeking a reaction from certain people in the crowd and that lost me. And for every single time that you encounter any negative situation, this is something that I want you to reflectively do every single time. Now that everything has been said, I just want to tell you that failure isn't something to fear. It's something to use. If you start applying these exercises today, you will realize that failure isn't the thing that is stopping you. It's your fear of failure that's holding you back. And once you have removed that, nothing can ever stand in your way ever again. Drop a comment with a failure you have recently experienced and what you learned from it.